So Brazil is a boom right now. Everyone turn your heads to Brazil. They just launched three different regulations they change and three different ways to access to medical cannabis. So 40% of the population is importing through their own procedures, medicine, CBD cannabis medicine. 30% of the population is obtaining this through the medical association groups, and 20%, 22% of the population is just going through the sanitary registries. Why I'm telling you these numbers? Because this is exactly the opposite of what the pharma system says. The pharma system obligates everyone to go through a sanitary registry in order to be able to sell, right? Brazil opening these sandboxes to the medical associations, they are opening the door to consumers as well and patients as well to be able to access to cannabis, but through the associations, right? So these associations are doing a big part of the work because they are the one moving the patients. And when we talk about medical cannabis, we need to think that it is not about the final drug, the clinical research of the medical authorization or sanitary registry. It is just about the patient. So Brazil is showing a really clear example to the world that when you put your attention on, the patients respond.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cannabis Accounting Podcast. Today, I have with me Mariana Larrea, the founder of MLA Legal and Consulting Boutique, as well as the STIGMA Hospitality Group. Mariana, for those who don't know you, I'll kick it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Raymond. And thank you for your invitation and to your attendees, your audience to be here. I think just through these kind of webinars and finding spaces, safe spaces to communicate and to share knowledge is how we all in the industry are going to finish with the stigma one way or the other. So thank you for the space. And I am an international attorney. I work in the cannabis industry from 10 years ago. In Mexico, the regulation has started in 2016 and it started in the general health law. So as I come from pharma, big law, I started through a cannabis client requesting if they can sell cookies in Mexico 10 years ago. That was the very beginning. I was working for Big Law. This was a topic really new in the industry, and working in Big Law was not helping me a lot because Big Law are always the attorneys of the pharma industry, right? So there it is, Mariana. She was an attorney, new attorney in that law firm, working just for the health industry. And she received this consultation, and I go with my boss, and the partner says, of course, no. We're a law firm, a high level law firm, and we're not going to sell cannabis or any cannabis business, right? Therefore, was something reading about CBD catch my attention in a way I didn't let it go. So I came back with him and say, listen, what about if you allowed me to study this topic if I promise to build n numbers of hours like the law firms tell you to do, right? And he says, okay, I don't know why you're resisting so much, but yes, if you bill me 8 hours daily, you can go and do whatever you want to do in CBD and cannabis in Mexico. So there is where I started working for the big companies in the law industry, but researching all these new medical CBD cannabis industry in Mexico through the lobbying. So I was in the group of the first Citizen Bill. We elaborate the federal cannabis law proposal for the Senate and the Congress. And there is where Mariana really goes deeply to read and understand what is the medical cannabis system, how the cultivation and the industrial hemp system should be, what about recreational, and how we're going to protect our consumers, right? Going through writing this project of the law is where I get all this specialization. And at the end, after 6 or 7 years there, I realized big law was not my place because my goal in the industry, not just in the cannabis industry, but in the health and wellness industry, is to support clients, not just through a paperwork, a legal agreement, or just a procedure that they need in an administrative way. But much more than that is to understand the business, to understand the industry, and to really help them to figure it out if what they want to do, either in Mexico or abroad, it is possible, right? I quit Big Law 3 years ago. I started my law firm. This
Right
is
on.
going to be my fourth year. My team in the law firm followed me, so I can still giving that high level, high end legal services, but with a personalized attention because I'm always involved and I don't let my clients with my attorneys. Everything is personalized. And we do three major areas in the firm. Of course, is health and cannabis. Then we do products consumption, beverage, food, cosmetics, dietary supplements, and we support to the recreational industry through the understanding of the cannabis associations that we are creating in Mexico. On the international space, I help clients to understand not just the framework in Mexico, but in LATAM and how to expand their brands internationally. So after 10 years in the industry, I've been speaking internationally 4 years, and that have helped me to build my network and to support the industry to understand those connections. It is not always about expanding a brand. It is not always about launching a new project or a new product. Your business should have a better understanding of the market, and that is what we help our clients to do. So that's a little bit of me and what we are doing on the legal side in Mexico. In order to make this business real and to have something to show to the industry, we are building Stigma Hospitality, which is going to be a real
Okay.
estate and hospitality project where all the clients of this industry could apply and could find a market. And that is the second project that we have here in Mexico.
Okay. No, that is really interesting to think that Mexico started legalizing medical cannabis in 2016. It's just it in 10 years everybody thinks so much more things are going to happen, but it's still just a medical one. Not just like we're glad we're getting patients there, but a lot is changing everywhere. So I guess like from that perspective, because yeah, like we were talking off camera, like I've spent a lot of time in Mexico City, living there over the years, and like just last Sunday or 2 or 3 Sundays ago, I was in Mexico City. We're pedaling down Reforma Avenue on the Sunday bike ride, as we like to do in Mexico City. People don't know, check it out. They shut down like the main drag of the whole city. It's awesome. But usually there's always these like little areas where people, it's like medical cannabis advocacy areas where people will set up
Yeah.
shop, and they're either medical patients are consuming, there's some distribution happening, as it's very probably under the rug, but it's pretty chill. I kind of like it. I always pull my bike over, hang out, spark a spliff up. But that's where, like, how I picture medical cannabis in Mexico, where I don't quite picture it yet, of like people are getting a medical card and then going to a medical dispensary. And so I guess just for my own naivety and then everybody else's, can you explain a little bit about the license types of business in Mexico, medical, adult use, and just where is it at in its life cycle? Because obviously we know it's a process to go from nothing to adult use.
Yes, no, those are exactly not the medical points in Mexico. Those are
I was
the
just telling people a personal story to wake the crowd up a little bit. But yes, no, obviously that's not like real medical cannabis.
that no, but but I could believe you if you
But it's
say
the
like,
starting point. You got to have
yeah,
advocacy and groups and
and a lot
people.
of patients groups are there. But what they are doing is more, as you exactly say, is more an advocacy project, is more an advocacy situation where they want to pressure the Senate and the government like through these spots. But the real situation is that instead of pulling people and knowledge and education and a platform of education, of security for consumers, these points tend to have a lot of problems with the police. So it's a little bit of taking care in time. Sounds exciting if you're bicycling. I can imagine where you were on your They sounds
Oh
but
yeah, it was like in front of the Senate building, and then there's another spot in front of Chapultepec Park. Those are like the two
sorry,
main advocacy areas.
yes, yes,
Advocate for the
yes,
medical
yes.
cannabis. Like,
We
of
support them. We support them, and
course.
at the end, everything is started with advocacy, right? In Mexico,
Yep.
the regulation is started because of a lawsuit, because of a medical lawsuit. Uli Elizalde, he was the first one applying to an amparo lawsuit. Basically, this is a trial where you sue the government because they are not giving you all the paperwork in order to import medical cannabis. And because of his advocacy through this legal structure, is that we today have our rescheduling. Our rescheduling was in 2017. Mexico rescheduled cannabis in 2017. And we have the medical regulations in 2021. So we are one of
Yeah.
the unique countries in the world with a full pharmaceutical medical framework for medical industry. And the reason a lot of us are still waiting is because rescheduling in the United States. All the money is in the United States. Half of the money of the industry is in the United States.
Yeah.
So till the states doesn't move forward to regulate or to reschedule cannabis, nothing a lot could happen in Mexico because Mexico is not a manufacturer of pharma. Those are the developers of technology is Germany, is Israel, is Switzerland. The states own the investment and the money. So till all the factors don't start moving worldwide, this industry is not really going to start moving. I can see that the problem is every country wants to do everything. Everyone wants to be the best in everything. Until we do not understand that each region is made for specific containment creation developments because of the region, not because of cannabis. Giving you an example, Mexico is
Yeah.
going to sell pharma products till Germany develop them because Mexico have never developed life sciences. Germany has been the leader in life sciences forever, right? And Israel
Yeah.
and Switzerland. So Mexico has a law, full framework, the only country, and is nothing happening. Because what? Because Germany is still figuring out in between the flower and the telemedicine and the gloves. And the money is stuck in the States because who are the States? Brands, branding and branding. That's why you
Yeah,
have
we
the
do like
money.
that.
So till the state is not able to move those brands internationally, that money is going to still in the interest in the States. Sorry.
Quick question, because I do like this stuff, and I agree with it, like your thought process. But just like having lived in Mexico, like there's tons of rich people in Mexico and rich business owners. So just candidly to break the screen, like, what are your thoughts? Like, yes, there's capital in the states that can get into cannabis, but if Mexico has a federally legal medical cannabis framework, what's keeping some of the businesses like the Mexico headquartered businesses, like the native businesses to Mexico, from investing in cannabis or trying to make a play on it?
Exactly. Yes, no, it's a great question. And it's exactly what I was trying to explain. What is holding us is that even though we have the, if you want to say the money, but more than the money, even though we have all the legal framework for making this something that could work, the technology is not going to come from the IPA is not the patent is not going to come from a Mexican laboratory. It's going to come from a pharma laboratory abroad. And this has not been yet developed to a level that we receive that technology. So Mexico cannot register patents of products that haven't been registered and developed. And the ones who develop normally are the Germans and the Swiss people and the Israel
Yeah, that's
people.
fair. We
So
don't even do
if
it in
they
the
don't
states. Like,
develop this, and I know this not because of cannabis, I know this because I was attorney from the Germans, Siemens Healthcare, GK, like all the Germans when I
can
was
you
in
explain that a little bit? Because yeah, like even like healthcare and other stuff, like there's these whole regulatory bodies and like licenses that you need in order to make a cream people put on their face. So can you just talk a little bit about just what you did outside of cannabis and then the parallels? from the sense of people think cannabis is completely brand new and special, and somebody like you who's been a lawyer for many years at very prestigious companies, you're like, this is the same thing, but just with a new product for people to consume. So can you just
Exactly.
talk a little bit about the parallels from non-cannabis products to cannabis products as far as who needs the licenses, where does the money come from to fund
No,
these things?
yes. And literally the reason why I fit and the sanitary regulatory profession fits so well is because my expertise in pharma and in law, in health law, protects all the consumption products, food, beverage, cosmetics. So before working for cannabis, I was already working for dietary supplements, for food, for cosmetics, for pharma, and Mexico is in the number 12 economy in the world for life sciences, but not for developing life sciences. It's because we have all the holdings of the Europeans in Mexico City and El Estado de Mexico. We have all the holdings of the pharma. We register the medicines in the Mexican COFEPRIS, Mexican FDA, and then we distribute to LATAM. That is the entrance door of Europe
And so
to
that's how they're able to get
pharma.
into South America and all of Central
Exactly,
America.
but it comes first of all through Mexico because our EU GMP system is the same of Europe. So we are same level of agency, medical. I was going to say Health Canada, but no. The European Agency of Medicines is the same level GMP as Mexico COPEPRIS is the Federal Commission for the Protection Against Sanitary Risks. So on that level is the same. So the regulations for cannabis in Mexico is the same for normal pharma, but plus CBD and THC. Nothing really changes. That's
Yeah.
right why anything is happening because the pharma industry worldwide is not moving with cannabis. So till we do not have our own big pharma companies developing and investing in clinical research for our industry, Mexico is not going to be able to manufacture and distribute because that's what we do. Import either registries, import, manufacture, and distribute to LATAM and the States. That has been our work since forever. But coming back to the question, what you can do in Mexico with medical cannabis? No, we do not have pharmacies of flower or dispensaries of medical flower as in the States. We are just allowed to follow the medical pharma law, which is sanitary registries, MA, medical authorizations, which is clinical trials and research in pharma. Of course, the doctors can prescribe any cannabis medicine, but there is not a production of cannabis medicines, right? So you
Yeah.
have an exemption in the law which establishes and opens the door to the dietary supplements, cosmetics, food, and beverage industry. So in Mexico, you can sell cannabis products that contain no more than 1% of THC and that are focused not to the recreational industry, but to the wellness industry. Therefore, we are supporting American brands that are developing all kind of dietary supplements. Now they have ashwagandha, CBD, and ginseng, and all these kind of new dietary supplements for the wellness industry. We're supporting cosmetics companies. We're supporting food and beverage, the
Right.
famous seltzers, minor cannabinoids or semi-synthetic cannabinoids. So all those are products where Mexico is leader and we can help them to sell this in Mexico. From the medical side, we are ready to receive the investment because the license
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
the
say because
laboratories are here.
I've been to. I remember I went to a lab one time, and this was a few years ago. I was really just trying to check it out. I was just interested to meet other cannabis professionals in Mexico. I was like, yeah, sure, let's talk. But if people are they're trying to find areas 'cause in the states. The argument is Southern California is the best growing, and I'm like, it's Southern California. There's other areas in Mexico that are further south and closer to the equator, arguably better growing climates. You guys have the land, you have the labor. How long, and this is a crystal ball question, so my apologies, but I guess do you see in the next 5 to 10 years, similar to like how Colombia cultivates and then exports to Canada and over to Europe or through there, would Mexico become something like that where they could become a cultivation and export country for some of the other supply chains? Or
For the medical industry, if
yeah, it would be for
we
medical. Yeah, that's what I'm
if
thinking of.
we see that money starts flowing after sterling, yes, I can see definitely Mexico doing that. But needs to come from a foreign investment. I do not see the Mexicans investing on
Come
medical
on.
cannabis to do this.
No, that's fair.
To see that Mexico has a double stigma.
Yeah.
When it talks about investment and
Let's talk
Mexico,
about it. What is the double stigma?
we have is the stigma, like the traditional stigma of the industry that everyone is afraid about when we start in business. But as Mexico has a situation, political situation, we find more challenging to secure investment with people that is not from here, right? And the Mexicans don't really know what's happening abroad. So that is my word in between coming and going internationally speaking, because this is exactly what I show them what's happening in other regions of the world and how we need to be part of the game. And we are part of the game because we are just the 12th consumption nation in the world. We have the number 12. But on the medical speaking business, we need to see how the pharma chain comes. Until the pharma chain doesn't change, then the frameworks are not going to support really the industry. What Mexico and the opportunities I see is in magistral compounding. But magistral compounding is different than
Yeah,
the
what is that?
pharmaceutical system. So magistral compounding is when you go to the pharmacy and the doctor gives you a tincture that your doctor prescribed with a certain amounts of CBD and THC and I don't know, coconut oil or hemp oil, whatever the oil they want. So it's a personalized medicine. And this is a way that we can better get to the patients, palliative patients, geriatric patients, because it's how the medicine is going to work in their endocannabinoid systems. And it's legal and it's possible. But again, we need the whole chain for pharma. You need the traceability from the seed to the on-shelf final tincture. But it's also a business possible, and I am supporting clients in Mexico to develop those laboratories of magistral compounding. So there are a lot of opportunities for Mexico and the States after rescheduling, and it is just about turning both heads to the other and understanding where those partnerships could come. Right? Mexico is just going to be 80% cheaper for production.
That's
We
what I was gonna
have,
ask. So you think about 80% is like as far as like production, labor, land, overhead, because those are kind of like our biggest expenses.
yeah.
That's
And for
that's
clinical research, 50 to 70%. And our legal framework has 5 years old, so it's nothing new. And we also have a big group of patients and population that is growing year by year to be the market. So it's just about making it happening. Is we're waiting the momentum to this to happen.
no, that's fair. That's fair. And because I honestly, like we were talking off camera, like I love Mexico. I've been there for a while, and like it's a strong country as far as yeah, it's got some like differences between the higher ups, like the inequality gap, but so does the United States. But like I lived in Condesa and like Roma Norte when I kick it in Mexico City. So it's like my neighborhood is nicer than the neighborhood I live in Milwaukee. So like it's definitely it's like a country with buying power and tens of millions of people. So I guess that's my next question because like for sure as laws change, some of these LATAM markets for sure, not only just production, but they'll become markets of consumers in and of themselves for sure. So thinking through that of just what markets in LATAM do you think, and just for the audience, when we say that, we mean Latin America, it's just shorthand for that. But thinking through LATAM, what are some countries that you think are emerging markets, either for potentially for consumers, but then currently for production, product manufacturing, from your perspective, being down there?
Yeah, so Brazil is a boom right now. Everyone turn your heads to Brazil. They just launched three different ways, three different regulations they change, and three different ways to access to medical cannabis. So 40% of the population is importing through their own procedures, medicines, CBD cannabis medicines. 30% of the population is obtaining this through the medical association groups, and 20%, 22% of the population is just going through the sanitary registries. Why I'm telling you these numbers? Because this is exactly the opposite of what the pharma system says. The pharma system obligates everyone to go through a sanitary registry in order to be able to sell, right? Brazil opening these sandboxes to the medical associations, they are opening the door to consumers as well, and patients as well, to be able to access to cannabis, but through the associations, right? So these associations are doing a big part of the work because they are the one moving the patients. And when we talk about medical cannabis, we need to think that it is not about the final drug, the clinical research of the medical authorization or sanitary registry. It is just about the patient. So Brazil is showing a really clear example to the world that when you put your attention on, the patients respond. So now we have, last year were 400,000 registered patients, and to the date are around 1 million registered patients
In Brazil?
in Brazil through these associations. And this has moved the government and DISA to make three major changes in the law: manufacture and production, licensing, IP, and clinical research, and of course the import, export, and which products could be using cannabis. So before were certain formulations, and now it is open to topicals, suppositories, oils, etc., etc., etc. So the market is opening. Of course, you need to go through the ANVISA procedure, which is an FDA sanitary authorization. Is the same thing. ANVISA, FDA is the
Agreed.
same thing. But you are going to be able to be sold, to be manufactured, and to have a market in Brazil. So Brazil is going to position not as an exporter, but as an importer, right? Then you turn your eyes to Colombia. Colombia in October had the latest legal update. They opened pharmacies of medical flower to the domestic market. So now in Colombia, you are going to be able to go to the pharmacy with your prescription and obtain medical flower on that side. And that is a big change because now we are going to see what the Colombian does. If they continue to push to obtain the EU GMP technology, to continue to export all the flour to Europe, Germany, Portugal, Czech Republic, or if they start attending that domestic demand, plus the demand that Brazil is going to have, plus the demand Uruguay already has, plus the demand Ecuador already has. So Colombians are going to be split in two, the ones who attend the domestic market and the ones to attend the European market. And why I say this, because if you are a from Latin America and you want to go to Europe, yes or yes, you're going to pay the double EU GMP, right? You're going to pay it in your country and you're going to pay it from Europe to go to the European market. So this opens a door for Colombia. Costa Rica did, while we were in ICBC, their first export of medical flower from Costa Rica to Germany. And we already know that Uruguay introduced the CBD in the medical healthcare last year. So they are going to be clients for extractions and they are going to be buying all this in order to integrate it in the medical cannabis. Peru and Chile remain. Peru a little bit more focused in the hemp industry. Chile focused on moving through activism for the recreational side and the consumers on that side. But yes, like you can see, Latin America is moving, is answering to the global movement, and we just own the 30% of the arable land in the world. We have, as I said before, the best conditions for growing. And I really need to see, and I really am looking forward to see Americans partnering with LATAM developers and LATAM companies in order to support them in the financial side, but as well finding a route with Canadians, because the Canadians are the ones who have the standards, right? And being
Yeah, they have
in the
to.
game a little bit more. But yes, those are the opportunities, and that's what I do in the firm. And this is how I help my clients to understand which market is better for them to grow.
I appreciate the breakdown too, because I like profit margins and tracking the numbers. But yeah, if you have to pay to get it certified here and then over there, whereas maybe other LATAM countries would just take your country's certification and then go once. Because yeah, like we were joking off screen, like I was in Montevideo watching the kite surfers like a month ago. And yeah, there was like cannabis everywhere. Like you could tell they had a robust medical program, couple of cool cafes, actually, really only one. But it's like an interesting thing where there's definitely a medical market. I would say in LATAM, it does remind me more of Europe, where it's like it's a medical market or really none at all. Whereas that's okay though. Like we're just so used to it in the United States of like you use medical to get to adult use, and adult use is really all we're going for. And it's not really. There's a lot of the global supply chain is almost purely medical. There's not a lot. There's almost no countries that can import adult use cannabis. Like they set up their clubs like Germany. Like Germany can import medical, but like the adult use stuff is cultivated by the clubs domestically. And so I think Latam do the same playbook. And it's interesting too, the stigma. Like people forget, like there's a lot of just how we have grandmas in America, and they're like my Catholic grandmas, like just like cannabis is the devil's lettuce. It's my buddy UC also has a Catholic grandma in Mexico that thinks that cannabis is the devil's lettuce. And so there is like the local stigma and education that's going on. But then to your point, once the local kind of people want it, there is a lot of reasons for global trade to flow down to Latam. And obviously, I've been hanging out there for a while. I love Latin America. I think it's a really good time. Okay, thinking through, I see we got like a few more minutes here. I want to be mindful of your time, Mariana. I could nerd out about cannabis and traveling and everything all day, but I'm
Me too. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
thinking through just the topic of just move. We have emerging markets, we have Latam, we have Mexico coming online here. So I guess if you could change, I guess there isn't much to change. What would, when thinking through, and this is more of a legal question of like when you're thinking through who to partner with in other countries, because that's also it too. Yes, you need the country to have legal framework. We need to have the capital. But I guess just when vetting partners, how do you advise your clients through vetting partners with if you're importing into one country, who's going to be your receiver in that country to make sure it flows down the supply chain? So how do you think through vetting partners from the legal perspective of the supply chain?
Yes, I think our best discover or the best way we can really be accurate speaking about expanding a company to new markets is to see not the legals, is to see the consumers or the patients. Like there, I see so many clients trying to expand to new markets just because, example, when Canada in 2019 they opened the regulation, right? A lot of the industry moves by momentum, but that momentum doesn't apply to everyone all the time. So the momentum I'm calling out right now is for the medical industry because it's a medical market in Brazil and they have 1,000 patients. That is the clue, but the clue is not the three reforms they did in this year. The clue is the 1,000 patients
It's 1
restored.
million, 1 million
Sorry,
patients.
1 million. What I say?
1,000, but it's
No,
a
1 million, 1
it's a
million.
million for the English speaking audience. But yeah, 1 million patients, which is a very material amount. If you do
Sorry,
100K, it's
1
hard
million.
to get
Yes.
from 100K to a million. But to your
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
that's the signal in Brazil.
Yeah, but the point is to see the consumers and the patients and the market. It is not about the regulations. It is about how these regulations could really apply to your market. Example, rescheduling. How you think rescheduling is going to benefit clients?
That was my question too. So I'm an American, so I think about rescheduling and Schedule 3 coming down the pipe. So from your perspective, how does the global cannabis industry view rescheduling in America? Like, do they think of it as a positive thing, as a negative thing? In America, we have people in both camps. How does the global supply chain, whether it's LATAM or Europe, think about America going from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of our cannabis?
Yeah, that's why I ask you because normally when someone says it's rescheduling, they say medical cannabis. That's all. Medical cannabis. That's the answer. Rescheduling is medical cannabis. That's what everyone thinks. And that could be assumed like FDA is going to give sanitary registries to medicines. Or that could be understanding like now all the states in the United States can sell medical marijuana. And that is not correct.
No, it's
Medical,
not
the
correct.
rescheduling is about medical cannabis, yes, but applying to export of flower. If you obtain the correct licenses, it's just going to be one license per activity. Either you're distributor, either you're manufacturer, either you are a
You grow it, you turn it into
cultivation,
products.
right? And then it's going to apply by states. It's not going to apply federally. And then you need to follow the medical marijuana laws that the state have. And that is how it's understanding for the Americans. But for the international community, what I do in the firm and how I help them to do this is okay, what about the export of those states that are going to be able and will have the licenses to export going to be like? The states I just say here, right? Virginia, Texas, blah. So then we make a strategy with our clients regarding those states that are going to be the top leaders in medical cannabis. And then we speak about exports, right? And how this could apply to them. So that's an example of what we do for clients to understand how they should expand. And specifically speaking about rescheduling, there is where I see the opportunity. The opportunities are in research, clinical research. The money is going to be in the States. So finding the financial strategies to move the money for medical marijuana research, because this is something the world needs. And anyone is really focusing and investing in clinical research. And then we are also going to see opportunities for, yes, international brands, but more coming from the states outside. I see everything is going to be branding from the states to the world. If I am an investor in the state, I will look for a partner in South America or a partner in Canada, depending what I want to do. If you want to stay in South America, LATAM, going and growing your brands there, you can do that. But if you want to go to Europe, you should talk with the Canadians because they have most of the work figured out. And they need money. They need a lot of investors because their taxes are over 40, 70%. So that is going to be an interesting alliances as well, even
For
though
sure.
part of the industry likes it or not.
Man,
But I'm Mexican, so I love everyone. I love to be everywhere.
you are a Mexican. I love how you just break it down just so straightforward. For those who don't know, Mariana just broke it down like exactly how it is, how it's going to play out. I believe you and I agree with you 100%. It's just nobody wants to admit it. They're always like, no, it's this other supply chain. I think it's because like naturally America has such a bad rap globally right now, rightfully. But it's no, like we're already in the global supply chain. So yes, the money will come where the $20 billion market lives and the vast majority of investable wealth lives, which is going to be citizens of the United States, regardless if they have homes in multiple countries. They're still citizens. Head banks and companies are headquartered there. So not, I'll get off my soapbox, but I totally agree with you. And it is interesting. And yeah, it depends what you want to do. Cause like, that's another thing too. Like people think they only want to produce and cultivate in like LATAM and then export to Europe and Canada. And I'm like, dude, they're markets in and of themselves. Like you could totally produce in Mexico and like in due time and like sell within those markets. And to your point, same within Brazil and Colombia, like they have massive population centers and their middle class is growing stronger and stronger every year. So like the amount of people to sell to, like you can just have your brand live in Latam, regardless of what people think. But no, I agree with you. It will be interesting to see kind of how the new supply chain shakes out with S3. Obviously, it still needs to come into play, but I just give everything 1 to 3 years. And it's, yeah, it happened, but like in 3 years, it's going to be very impactful. So everybody who tries to downplay S3 right now, it's a yes, maybe Thursday in May 21st, 2026. But if we're talking in 2028, 2029, they'll look back at like the federal government of America doing S3 as, oh yeah, this kind of reshook everything up a little bit. To your point, there's a lot more research that can be done. And that is like the predecessor of real products. Like you got to do this clinical studies, get them signed off on by COFEPRIS, the FDA, then we can sell them. cannabis is just this weird market where we're like trying to circumnavigate all these like normal things that we do to get our products to market. And then we kind of think that's normal. It's no,
Yeah.
that's not normal. Even the medical or the cosmetic products like go through testing. They have to go get signed off on by like the FDA or the COFEPRIS. We're just in our weird little world in America, cannabis. Anyways, this was a pleasure. Final question, Mary, just because I know I could just chat with you about this. What is the there's a lot of things that we got to figure out in the cannabis industry, but I'm an optimist. I like to be positive. So looking for the next 1 to 3 years, what has you most excited about Mexico's cannabis industry as well as the global cannabis industry at large?
You know what? Today I was in a networking group and they say that trends doesn't prove a market, but trends challenge the market. So in 1 to 3 years, I see that all the trending markets that we nowadays feel and think and we have all our eyes on
Yeah.
are going to be proved, and we are realizing about it through the industry and through the consumers and patients. And after those proofs and challenges the worldwide industry is living, we are going to be able to finally understand who is who in the game. I was explaining this before, right? I think the challenge that the industry has is understanding who is who, and not just worldwide, even in your region.
Yeah,
Even
for
in
sure.
each region, they are who is the best for medical cannabis, who is the best for hemp, who is the best for construction. And what I have noticed after all these 10 years working for the industry, and 10 years is not just working, is elaborating legal updates every day about what's happening in each region, right?
Answering questions, thinking about things from questions from other people. Ah, okay, let me think about this.
It's like the movies. It's like you just see pop up, a new market, and they. I was speaking in Iceland last year. What's Iceland? Who knows Iceland with cannabis? One, but there's a conference, and are these
Yeah.
little markets that are popping, and are amazing and prove that the world is moving. So, as you say, I'm also positive, and I always bring my attention to the consumers and the patients,
Yeah.
and there is where the industry is really happening, not in the trending topic markets.
I actually agree. I like the way you put that. It is. It's the consumers and publicly right now, globally, they're the medical consumers and patients. And that's in 3 years, like where the market will be going. No,
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. And that is very true, right? Like it might signals, trends, outliers, really signals and trends. Like they don't change things overnight, but like they challenge the status quo. And that's the only way we get to change is by challenging the status quo. And there's a lot of challenging of the status quo happening right now in the cannabis industry, more
Yeah.
so than in the last few years, I'd say. Where can people find you, Marianne, for the rest of 2026? I'll have your email and your website and everything in the call notes, but I guess where are you going to be around and what's the best way to get a hold of you for people who want to work with you?
I will be speaking in Grow Up in Toronto in the next week in June 1st. I will be hopefully in Mary Jane in Berlin. I am also going to be in France to the Science in the City conference with Kristen. And we are planning to go to Expo Brazil, Expo Uruguay, and going down to Latin America to find all those opportunities for our clients, networkers, distributors, pharmacies, and starting to put together as well how Latin America is going to develop in the industry, helping my colleagues in there and helping companies to see that emerging markets are going to mark tendency in the few upfront years. So let's check on the emerging markets.
Awesome. Awesome. No, I couldn't agree more. Hopefully, we will cross paths either on this side of the pond or the next, or here or in South America. Cause I'm curious now about Uruguay and Argentina and Brazil. But thanks so much for your time, Mariana. You have a good day. I will talk with you later.
Thank you.